Hey rockers, I have been getting quite a bit of feedback from some of you metalheads requesting more metal stories. So here we go, man. We're going to flash back to the year 1981 and go down to St. Louis, Missouri to check out Judas Priest and Savoy Brown at the Kiel Auditorium, May 16th, 1981. Yep, man, it was a trip because back in 1980, I was a big Judas Priest fan already. And of course, British Steel had come out, and I was a fan for many years before that came out. But when British Steel was released, those guys were basically unleashed to the world because it hit in a big way. And they got some great radio hits with, of course, I got my little notes here, Living After Midnight, and of course, Breaking the Law. Those songs are still staples in not just an American diet of music, but all over the world. Living After Midnight is an anthem, man. It's a song that everyone knows. It's probably one of the more famous metal songs out there, arguably. Breaking the Law, same thing, man. Who doesn't know? Breaking the law, breaking the law. Remember Beavis and Butthead? They used to say that a lot, right? Anyway, my friends, in 1980, I was living in Peoria, Illinois, and we were going to take a trip to Florida for vacation, and Judas Priest was playing in Pekin, Illinois at the same time, which wasn't far from Peoria, and I had to miss that show, man. So we went all the way down to Florida with the family, and they had to listen to Judas Priest, British Steel on an 8-track in the car, and I'm sure that wasn't something they really dug, but my family was pretty cool, man. Shout out to my late grandmother, Virginia, and my mom and my cousins for putting up with my music habits on those trips to Florida back in the day in the 70s and early 80s. I think I went there 4 times. My great-grandmother and grandfather lived in Florida. Flash forward another year. I'm no longer living in Peoria, Illinois because I was kicked out of the District 150 school system there. Yep, that's a whole nother story. But I got sent down to live with my dad by my mother because I was just a little bit out of control. Just a little, and I was going through some heavy phases of drinking the old spirits, if you know what I mean. So I'm living in St. Louis, in Venice, Illinois, actually, right next to East St. Louis. So to be precise, that's where I was living, Venice, a town of 900 people. Wow, do I have stories from living there, man. Next to East St. Louis, no joke. But St. Louis, my friends, was a major hub for concerts, and I think it still is. But the Kiel Auditorium was a special place, and I saw many concerts there. Really blessed to see so many concerts. Now, when I left Peoria for Venice, Illinois, which was way south, right next to, like I say, East St. Louis, which is next to St. Louis, my dad was pretty strict about the fact that I could not drink alcohol, and I promised that I would not. And I kept my word, but on this night, my father, he did drop me off at this concert. He was cool enough to let me go see Judas Priest, and I was super excited, man. I had my leather jacket. I was ready to rock and roll, and I promised I'd stay away from that evil alcohol, which I did. By the way, that's the latest album from Judas Priest right there. Yep, Invincible Shield. Good stuff, man. Thank you to Audreezy for gifting that to me. Actually, yeah, it was Audreezy. Thank you. Anyway, my dad says, cool, I'll take you to the concert, but no drinking. I know what goes on at those concerts. And I said, don't worry, Dad, I promise. So I smoked a little something. But I went to the concert. He drops me off. I get there. The place is packed. I'm all by myself. But I'm just excited because, I'd heard Savoy Brown a lot, and I never seen them live. I got to be honest, I don't remember seeing Savoy Brown that much. What a bummer, huh? I saw them one other time after that, and I got to tell you something, man. I love the music of Savoy Brown, but I'm going to skip over them because I don't have any vivid recollections, and I don't want to just be making stuff up like some people say. That don't happen here at Bloody F Mess Official. So we get there, I get dropped off, it's a big crowd, and man, the band starts to rock. They come out and there's just bikers everywhere. I remember there was a biker gang. I can't say specifically that it was the Hells Angels. That's kind of what I remember, but I do know this. It was a big biker gang, and they were all around me in this crowd. And boy, it was like people packed together like a sardine. And I'm the kind of guy that tries to get up to the front of the concert when I get to a show, especially especially back when I was younger, man. So I was up as close as I could be, maybe 5 people back from the stage. I had a great view of the stage. Bikers are all around me. There's just rockers everywhere. The energy is electric. Savoy Brown plays. They leave the stage, and then the moment we're waiting for is about to happen, man. The great Judas Priest from the United Kingdom hits the stage, right? And I did get a hold of the set list they were doing on that tour. So I'm going to go into a little bit of that, and then I'll tell you my story about these bikers that were everywhere. They came out, and the band consisted of Rob Halford on vocals, of course, obviously. KK Downing and Glenn Tipton on the guitars. A couple of legends there, man, right? Ian Hill on the bass. And, of course, the legendary Dave Holland, who went on to get into a lot of trouble later on. I'm not going into that because, you know, there's some people out there that have weird theories that he was innocent. I don't know, man. I'm not getting into conspiracy theories. All I can say is the music he contributed on drums with Judas Priest was some good stuff, man. So let's just forget about talking anything bad about the late, great Dave Holland. If he did what he did, that's horrific, and I'm not at all into that kind of stuff. So I'm just telling you, I'm just judging the guy by the music he did with Priest and going to leave the rest out because he ended up in prison, and he did his time, and I'm just going to keep it there, man. But rest in peace, Dave Holland, who's no longer with us, but all those other guys are. And on this night, these guys were on it, man. I'm telling you, this is when they were in their prime. I mean, they had many years of being in their prime. Don't get me wrong. Judas Priest, I'm a huge fan. They came out that night, though, and they basically did the song Solar Angels. 1980, British Steel came out. 1981, Point of Entry came out. And this was a song from the Point of Entry album, Solar Angels. Very hypnotic, a real chill song to open with. Really cool, man. A big surprise. After that, Heading Out to the Highway. Again, from the Point of Entry album, and that was a cool video on MTV. Diamonds and Rust was up next. Joan Baez wrote that song. It's one of the Judas Priest classics from the Sin After Sin album. They went into Troubleshooter, also from Point of Entry. I don't think I've ever seen them play that song live after this tour. Breaking the Law. Everybody was singing along to that. The album had been out over a year, and this is when bands were pumping out an album a year kind of thing. And Breaking the Law, man, the place went nuts. When that happened, all the bikers started holding up bottles in their hands, and these bottles contained whiskey and various hard types of alcohol. The kind of stuff that I used to drink a lot that got me in a lot of trouble in Peoria. Not the kind of trouble that, you know, gives you like a major record or anything, but just hell raising in general, and it got out of hand. So I didn't want to see that whiskey or any of that booze because my dad said, don't drink. Well, here it was, and next thing I know, these guys are all doing this, holding these fifths of whiskey, and the stuff is just flying all over the place. It's all over my clothes, whiskey on my jacket, whiskey in my hair. I'm like, oh my God, because there's one thing that I know about booze is you can't really hide it that well, especially the hard stuff. You can smell it a mile away. And if you're in a car with someone, which I was going to be later with my dad, I was freaking out. Man, he's going to think that I was drinking for sure. So anyway, I decided not to worry about it. I couldn't get away from the bikers. I was stuck in there like a sardine in a sardine can. So after Breaking the Law, the band goes into a classic from the Sin After Sin album. I'm talking about Sinner. Wow. The vocals that Rob Halford delivered that night doing Sinner, Sin After Sin, Sinner, take 2, was incredible. That guy's vocals are just legendary. Long live Rob Halford, the metal god. Shout out to Rob Halford. After Sin, Sinner, they went into Beyond the Realms of Death. My friends, it's got to be one of the most beautiful songs ever written. If you haven't heard Judas Priest, Beyond the Realms of Death, you got to write that down and go to YouTube later and check it out, man. I'm telling you. My friends, at the same time, could you stop for 1 second? Could you subscribe to my channel? Could you give it a like and leave a comment and maybe share? Thank you. After Beyond the Realms of Death, which again from the Stained Class album, came Grinder, a great song from the British Steel album. Gosh, I love that record. After Grinder, another tune from the Point of Entry, which of course they were, I believe, on the Point of Entry tour at this point, and that's what this was. They did Hot Rockin'. Yeah, that's another classic Priest song. A lot of people love Hot Rockin'. Great one. You don't have to be old to be wise, with the great line lyrics. I've grown sick and tired of all the old lies. You don't have to be old to be wise. God, I love those lyrics. Rob Halford, man, I can't say enough about the great vocals of this guy. I can't say enough about the great dynamite duo guitar work when I saw Glenn Tipton and, of course, KK Downing. It was legendary, beautiful, and just out of this world. Those guys are two of the very best in metal, absolutely. And, of course, I can't say enough about Ian Hill, great bass player, one of the founding members of Priest, of course. After You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise, I'm going to have to say they went into my very favorite Judas Priest song of all time. And that, my friends, I'm talking about Victim of Changes. Arguably one of the very best Priest songs ever written. I say it is, in my humble opinion. And of course, Victim of Changes is from my favorite Judas Priest album of all time, Sad Wings of Destiny. What a great record. There's stuff on there that doesn't sound like any other Priest record. A lot of operatic stuff. Of course, Priest with Priest, a lot of it's operatic, right? Anyway, after The Victim of Changes, they went into the Green Manalishi, which was written, of course, by Peter Green and released by Fleetwood Mac in 1970. And Priest kind of has owned that song ever since they covered it. Yep. Everyone kind of forgets that Fleetwood Mac did that originally, but Judas Priest kind of took that one and ran with it, man. Kind of like they did when they did Joan Baez's Diamonds and Rust, right? So after they did Victim of Changes, which, again, if you haven't heard that song, you're missing out on one of the best songs in rock and roll. The Green Manalishi was next, of course, from the Hellbent for Leather album, which I gotta say, that's another great Priest record, man. The Green Manalishi rocks. Hellbent for Leather was up next, and that, of course, is the title track from the album, Hellbent for Leather. And that song is so good. It's got a classic rock star big ending. You know, love it to death. And that's an Alice Cooper reference. They did a short break. I don't recall them doing an encore. I could be wrong. I think they took a short break with lights out. And, you know, during the show, there was a lot of smoke and a lot of lights. And seeing Priest on stage, especially doing stuff like Beyond the Realms of Death with all this smoke on the stage, it's just like otherworldly, like ethereal, like really trippy, man. I love Judas Priest. Does it show? So after a short break, of course, what do you think they ended with from the great British Steel album? They ended with Living After Midnight. The whole audience erupted. The bikers are spilling whiskey on me. It's all over me, man. At this point, I'm completely paranoid. My dad's going to kick my you-know-what. So when the show finally ends, I'm a nervous wreck because I'm like, literally, I had this agreement and I was known as a bad boy. There was no way my dad wasn't thinking he might slip up. He might drink. But what happened was, my dad picks me up from the show. I immediately get in the car. I go, Dad, before you smell it, I got to tell you what happened. Please at least give me a chance. He says, what? I said, look at my eyes. Listen to my voice. I'm not slurring. I'm not drunk, but I smell like it because, and I told him the story about the bikers. And you know what he said? I believe you. So I worried for nothing, man. I hate to say it, but I'm still a classic worrier. But what are you going to do, man? Thanks, Mom. Genetics, aren't they a fun thing? Hey, I appreciate you checking out my stories, man. And it's always fun going back down memory lane. I got to tell you, man, I'm not really a guy that lives in the past. I just like to share my adventures from back then. I'm very much about now. You can get my new Dark Days Unfazed album on CD or vinyl by contacting me at the email on this here video in the description area, where I try to at least put some information that's worth reading and maybe stuff that I didn't mention in the video. Thanks again for being here, my friends. Have a great weekend. I'll be back as soon as humanly possible. And yeah, keep your head up, stay healthy, stay happy, and do good to others. Cheers, my friends. Rock and roll. And hey, man, don't forget the Man in Black. Little nod and shout out to Johnny Cash fans out there. I got to see Johnny Cash one time with the Highwaymen. Yep, that was legendary. Have a great one. Cheers, and thanks for coming to Bloody F Mess Official, and thank you for subscribing.